I always recommend looking back at the previous year before you're planning for the next one to know what worked and which ones you want to replicate again. So if you know that workshops were on the slower side for you, but dinner seminars were gangbusters, okay, then great. Plan for more dinner seminars next year. And if you have a revenue goal that you're trying to hit, then you have to be able to reverse engineer how to get there. So let's say you want to double your production the next year. Well, then you need to double the amount of things that you're going to do to bring those leads in.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome into Ready, Set, Grow Strategies for Financial Advisors. Another special one in my heart because Brett Laney and I share a cubicle wall.
We do.
I hear her. She's quite loud on the phones. So this is kind of payback.
Loud voice
so now I get to yell at her for the duration of this podcast. But we're continuing our push with end of year planning and being ready for the new year. And we've got Brett specifically to talk about finishing the year strong and kind of having that events calendar really mapped out and knowing exactly what you're doing and being intentional about it.
Yep.
So let's get into end of year planning first and kind of maintaining that sense of urgency.
Sure. Yeah.
So I talked with one of our sales VPs yesterday. What do those calls sound like when you talk to an advisor? And he refers to it as the momentum phase.
Yeah.
These last 3 months of the year. So what do you tell advisors to maintain momentum going into the new year?
Yeah, this is a lot of the time when advisors will pull back. They've got holidays coming up. They think, oh, the clients won't want to meet during the holidays. It's not really useful to do an event. Might waste my money. Not a lot of people are going to show up. But really, what that time, if you pull back, your January and February will be slow too. And what I've seen is every single time that someone pushes into the season instead of pulling back, it reaps rewards in the first quarter of the year, the next year.
Yeah, we had an advisor do something similar where, again, it's counterintuitive. You think, okay, people are busy, people are traveling, they don't have time for an event.
Right.
Okay. We had an advisor push events really, really hard those last 2 months of the year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, January and February, his downline advisors have clients and have prospects rather, and have meetings on the books because of that push.
Right. Yeah, they're filling their lead funnel effectively, right? So, I mean, a lot of the time it might be a slightly smaller crowd, but they still filled all those events. And they just kind of prepared for the idea that the people at those events may not be able to make an appointment right away because it's holiday season.
Yeah.
So they went ahead and scheduled them for January and February. So when people came in, when their advisors started the new year off, they already had appointments ready and on the books, which is really different than a lot of people who are just gearing up in January, February, might hold their first seminar in February or early March, and they're kind of behind at that point, and they're just trying to kind of rev up. But if you're doing that in November, December, when you think it's a slow season, it really helps you out in January, February. We've seen that be true this summer too. A lot of advisors will say, "Oh, the summer, everybody's on vacation; they're not going to show up to the events." But it keeps momentum for August when it's back to school season.
Again, counterintuitive, you think. Yep. From a video and a social media posting perspective, another example, Thanksgiving. Yeah. Oh, why would we post something if our posting schedule is Thursdays at 9 a.m.? Why would we post it? Well, what are you doing on Thanksgiving? Are you around family members all day and you're on your phone scrolling? All of a sudden that post has new life. So it's counterintuitive, but you want to take advantage of that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Another counterintuitive moment is when you're talking about those events in December and saying, well, hey, we're not going to get them on the schedule for December 23rd. We're going to say, hey, let's meet in the new year.
Yep.
And kind of bucking the trend of time kills deals.
Right.
And leaning into it and being really strategic about how that appointment process is going to, kind of flow from those events.
Right. And I know a lot of advisors also, to kind of balance out with the holiday schedule, is they'll do virtual appointments. People might not have time to go, drive to the office during that time, or they may be out of the state visiting family
or weather or weather.
Yeah, very true. We don't get a lot of that down here in Georgia, but I know, north of basically Kentucky, you're getting a lot of it. So, I think they're offering virtual appointments to kind of give people that time. They can usually spare an hour. It's just the commute that they can't spare. So that's a good option too, is to, start using that virtual appointment experience to kickstart that with those clients that show up, or those prospects, that show up to those December events.
I know events are a push that our CMOs are really hammering events for this year to close out the year. But those end of the year events, you need to be really smart about those, right? It's not just a one size fits all, let's just do a seminar kind of thing.
Right. And seminars do work for a lot of people. I think it just kind of depends on, what time you're willing to give, what you're, how you're going to follow up with those prospects too. Because if you know that your team is not going to follow up with those prospects well, then do a holiday event. That's bring a friend. Movie events are great, because a lot of the big movie releases are in November, December. And so that's a really great low pressure environment to have clients bring friends to. And we've seen that do really well in those last months as well. So if seminars don't work in your area, or you're not prepared to do that, then that's a good option too.
And this is all about creating that pipeline of prospects going into the new year. You mentioned movie premieres. What else is on your radar in terms of a good event for an advisor to consider for November and December?
Yeah. So a lot of advisors, well, at least we've pitched this to a lot of advisors. I don't know how many have taken us up on it, but I think it would be excellent. Pictures with Santa. If you can get a Santa to come into your office, people will come with their families, and you just kind of, get prepared to have kids in the office, have some crayons at some tables and things like that. But they're really there to bring their families for a picture with Santa, because those are hard to get where you're not standing in a forever long line. You go to the mall, or you go to all these places that have Santa, and you're going to be there for a minute. But that's a great opportunity to bring people and grandparents in with their grandkids, and get pictures with the grandkids. But also that's another touch point, because you can hand them that picture later, and you can say, hey, come on back into the office and we'll give you the picture, or you can mail it out and offer them something for coming in. There's all kinds of different ways that you can do that. But I think that's a really great way to bring a ton of people in, and you're doing kind of a generational plug there too. You're working with the grandparents, but you're also, their kids are coming in, and then their kids' kids are coming in. And so it's really connecting the whole family to the practice.
I love looping in the big man. If he's got the time, I know that's a busy year for his busy season too. So getting Santa involved, that's funny you say that. We had Santa here at Impact last year, and I brought my daughter, and she still thinks I work with Santa. She thinks Santa's here every day. She thinks there's reindeer here. She thinks there's reindeer at my office all the time.
And she just hands you carrots to bring to them,
The pipeline has been generated. So one thing that we talked about yesterday is, that's kind of a client appreciation event. Like those are really good for this end of the year window of maybe it's tough to get in front of prospects, but you can easily get in front of existing clients.
And a lot of existing clients might have life changes, and so it's not like just getting your clients together is a waste of time, right? You want to always be thanking your clients at the end of the year too, but a holiday party is a great way to do that. Bring them all together. If it's Santa, if it's just a get together where it's, you guys you give them a nice meal and, some kind of entertainment, a band or something like that. But holiday parties always go over really well with clients, and they really enjoy coming in for that.
How do you feel about like holiday gifts, like gifts for your clients around the holiday season? Like obviously you're not going to go buy them a Buick, but what kind of stands out to you on that front?
So I think the biggest thing is just that it's something thoughtful, and it's something that if you're not thanking your clients throughout the year with something, then this is the time to do that. Because, I don't know, this seems so strange, but I get emails from my dentist on my birthday. And it seems silly, but I appreciate it, because it feels like, well, you shouldn't be paying attention to my birthday, you're a dentist. But people care. And so I think this is the moment where you can show appreciation for your clients, whether it's just with a nice event or it's an actual gift. Some people will send out little picnic baskets for them to take, for spring with their family, or a nice throw blanket, obviously within gifting limits, but obviously. But I would say that this is your time to thank your clients in a season where they are seeing thankfulness and gratefulness kind of shown. And so it's just a good good time to say thank you.
Again, need to be smart, need to be strategic,
Yep.
and not just throw a blanket over it and just say, this is what we're going to do for the end of the year.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Try if you can, tie it to your brand, tie it to your brand or something that's really thoughtful for the client specifically. If you know that you're in a really cold area, then maybe a throw blanket is great. But if you're in Florida, then maybe it's not. So you just kind of find that thing that is the right gift for your clients.
For that end of year planning, it kind of bleeds into January.
Yep.
And you think, oh, that's a tough month. Why am I going to do anything there? Well, we're going to have a new administration.
Yes.
And the changes of those first 100 days and playing into that with a seminar that is specific to that.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. I think, even when we know who is going to be the next president, we don't know what that necessarily means for us. And I think Abe Ashton was just talking about it the other day. It's just you don't need to be able to tell them, exactly what each candidate says on which policy. You need to be able to tell them that you're okay. You're going to be, I'm here to help you walk through it, and your finances are going to be all right.
Yeah.
And here's how we're going to create a plan together. So, I think it's being on the forefront of what that could be, because the first 100 days in office, they always roll out their plan, right? So they're going to tell you what they're going to do in that first 100 days. Whether that happens or not, it affects people's emotions. That's a big time when people are going to say, oh gosh, they might react to the markets. The markets might be changing because people react emotionally.
Yeah.
So, being out ahead of that is a really smart way to show your clients that what's on their minds. But also it's, setting up for great conversations.
The kind of the twofold part of the end of the year planning is the end of the year goal setting.
Yeah.
I talked with Kim Skuris, our sales guru / guru coach.
Yep.
And we kind of talked about that in another episode of Ready, Set, Grow. But what kind of goals should an advisor be setting, and why is it so important for them to do that now versus December 31st?
Yeah. So I always try and coach, my advisors to plan way ahead. I don't even hardly have to coach them because some of the ones I work with are way ahead already.
Yep.
In fact, we had some offices have their 2025 plan ready before August.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You get a sticker.
I don't expect that for everybody, but I will say that it sets you up for a couple things. One, you're already able to go ahead and book out when your events are. So that also allows them to, work in their other life outside of work. They know when they can take their vacations and all that stuff. They can work that stuff in their kids' school schedules. But it's also setting them up to know when they need to hire. It's setting them up for when they need to add additional things in. So like when they have planned out their events for the entire year, they know when there are slower times, right? If they plan out all their seminars or all their workshops, they can decide, okay, what month makes the most sense for client appreciation event then? I'd like to do 2 this year. And it leaves room for growth. So, you look back, I always recommend looking back at the previous year before you're planning for the next one to know what worked and which ones you want to replicate again. So if you know that workshops were on the slower side for you, but dinner seminars were gangbusters, okay, then great. Plan for more dinner seminars next year. And if you have a revenue goal that you're trying to hit, then you have to be able to reverse engineer how to get there. So let's say you want to double your production the next year. Well, then you need to double the amount of things that you're going to do to bring those leads in. If you only held 4 events and you want to double your production, automatically assume there's going to be 8 events next year. And so that's kind of the way I always recommend people think about it. We also have a helpful sheet on our portal for that if you're with Impact, but always looking at the goal that you're trying to hit and how you would reverse engineer to get there. But in order to do that, you have to track, right? To know that. So I know that's the word no one wants to hear.
But they all need
but
to
they
hear
need
it
to
this
hear
time
it.
of year,
Yeah.
especially. I mean, I was
Yes.
going to yell it out with the second you said, track your advisor.
Yes.
Track it. You got to be on
Yes.
top of that. And you can't really set goals for the new year if you don't know what happened,
Right.
if you aren't able to look in the rearview mirror at all
Right.
and know what happened.
Yeah, because otherwise you're looking at it emotionally, just like an investor does, right? When they're like, "Oh, well, we need to pull back. I'm the markets are going bad," and they're like, "No, you're going to be fine." The same is true here. I've heard advisors say, "Oh, dinner seminars just don't work for us. When actually it was 60% of their revenue. But they were tired of maybe holding them. It took a lot of time.
Oh boy.
Or maybe they felt like when they walked in the room that the quality wasn't good, but actually they were closing high quality leads. And the only way to combat that emotional decision making is to track and show with the data that that's not accurate. And then to take that same data and apply it toward your future plans, because that's going to be the most well-informed way to move forward.
You mentioned our portal for our advisors that are with Impact. I think it's a
Yeah.
great resource. And I mean, I haven't even scratched the surface of what all is
tons
in
on
there.
there.
Tons in there. But another resource that we have here that our advisors take advantage of when it comes to New Year goal setting is that sales VP that can help them kind of coach them up and help set those goals. When an advisor is approaching the new year and they want to have that New Year goal setting conversation, why is it so important that they talk to their team to kind of get on the same page?
Yeah, just like it's important to be talking to their internal team at their office, it's really important to talk to, the VP, their CMO, everybody here at Impact, because we're trying to make with one force. We're partnered with them in growth. So we need to be united as one to move forward, because if what they want versus what we're recommending are two different things, it's kind of a false start, right? But if we all have the same idea in mind and how to help them grow, we're all going to be able to accomplish that better and more efficiently. So, and not only that, but we hear from advisors all across the nation. We talk to people all the time. And so we know what works and what doesn't work and what we've seen. And so instead of kind of guessing, it's more informed. And so they're able to move forward with more knowledge and more understanding of, they know their market. We know what works more globally.
And have that full scope.
Yeah, exactly.
That full picture.
Yep.
We mentioned the portal.
Yeah.
We mentioned the sales VPs. We mentioned all that good stuff. What's one other way? Look into your crystal ball and tell me what's that one thing that an advisor needs to be prepared for going into that new year. I put Alex House on the spot.
Yeah.
I warned her. But I warned her in the podcast, so she had no time to prepare. So same thing for you. What's that one thing that when you pick up the phone and have that call with an advisor, you're saying, X, this is what you need to do?
That's a good question.
I love Santa Claus. I love bringing Santa Claus into the fold. That's a good
Santa Claus is a good one. I would just say, like, if you at all are thinking you need to pull back in an area and it's not data informed, you probably need to push in instead. So if they're thinking, I need to do fewer events this year, why is the reason for that? And if you can't tell me that there's a data informed reason, you probably need another event instead of one less.
I hope this has been enlightening. I feel like I end all these podcasts the same way with, I learned a lot. I hope the advisor watching this learned even more, because you're speaking their language and you do this for a living. And well, here I am just sitting here. Ready, Set, Grow is the podcast. It's on our YouTube channel. Also, you can get it wherever you get your podcasts. Also on our YouTube channel, we've got House Rules starring the incomparable Alex House, our Chief Marketing Officer here at Impact. And obviously, we've got Selling with Stories with Randy Cook, near and dear to my heart. I work with Randy on these. Yeah. Randy's laying out the blueprint for how advisors need to have really difficult and tricky conversations with clients and prospects. So that's a real resource, and that's free to everybody.
Yep.
That's available. And then you're hearing us talk a lot about this mythical portal. Oh boy, a lot on the portal. That's for Impact advisors. And that's where the secret sauce is. So
yeah.
Brett, thank you so much for joining us. And
that's great.
So we talked about punch cards before we got on here. You're slowly working your way towards a free sandwich.
Yes. Love me a pub sub.